A ripple went through the courtroom as Langford hardly looked up and denied Greer didn't flinch. The evidence is about your financial connections to the prosecution's backers. Are you rejecting a motion to introduce evidence against yourself? The prosecution's lead lawyer Forsyth's face turned pale as he shifted in his chair, and Langford's expression hardened. The judge slammed his gavel, and the courtroom erupted. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but Greer smiled the kind of smile that says, "You know you've won, then you won't mind us reading a few of your emails out loud." "I won't put up with," Greer went on to say, "we have proof of offshore payments and correspondence between you and Philip Grayson discussing a coordinated effort to ensure that Elon Musk's legal defense was obstructed at every turn. A weekend getaway in which you were flown out to personally meet business executives who stand to benefit from Musk's demise." Langford's hand trembled as he adjusted his glasses. "This is crazy," he murmured, voice softer. Now Greer wasn't done. He took printed copies of the leaked emails out of his briefcase and gave them to the court clerk. "We'll let the record decide what's ridiculous." The room was filled with murmurs. As the judge's impartial exterior broke down, Musk leaned back in his chair and watched as the doors at the rear of the courtroom flew open, revealing a federal investigator. The judge gazed at the woman in a navy blazer as if he had just seen a ghost. "Langford, Judge," she stated, voice even, "we need to speak with you urgently." The courtroom held its breath as Langford's jaw opened and closed for the first time since the trial began. He was the one who had run out of options, but the consequences had only just started. The federal investigator didn't move from her spot or raise her voice because the weight of her words had already taken the air out of the room. Judge Bernard Langford sat motionless, his hand tightening around the gavel, but for the first time since the trial started, he looked lost, his jaw clenched, his face drained of color. He was staring at the swift and uncontrollable collapse of everything he had built. Judge Langford repeated her words even though she was unforgiving, but she stepped down from the bench as of this moment you are under federal investigation for judicial misconduct, bribery, and obstruction of justice. The sound of shuffled papers, people shifting in their seats, and lawyers leaning toward one another created a wave of sharp whispers in the gallery. No one had ever witnessed anything like this occur in real time. Langford took a big breath, but it was erratic. He straightened his spine and gritted his teeth, saying in a low, panicked voice. The investigator raised her head slightly, displeased, but there was still no silence. "I am still overseeing an ongoing investigation." Langford was aware of it. Everyone in that courtroom knew it was over, including Forsyth. Musk folded his arms and leaned back. He didn't smile because he wasn't that kind of person, but it was hard to miss the joy in his eyes when the game was over and the team that believed it had the board was in charge. If anyone could uncover the missing piece, it would be Ethan Vaughn, a former DOJ analyst who became a whistleblower. She said over a burner call, "I need access to any encrypted communications linked to Langford. If he's covering his tracks, he's not doing it alone." Ethan hesitated. "This isn't just a bad ruling, Karoline. If Langford's involved in something deeper, you're stepping into dangerous territory." She exhaled sharply. "I don't care, just tell me if you can get something." A long pause, then give me 24 hours. She barely had 12 hours because the trial was proceeding at a breakneck pace, and if Musk's team didn't have something soon, he was going down. The following morning, her phone lit up. "Check your email, Ethan Vaughn. It's worse than you think. Leave it open." The file contained a series of leaked emails between Judge Langford and Philip Grayson, a corporate lobbyist with close ties to the court. Daniel Forsyth, the lead attorney for the prosecution, sent emails that were straightforward and unambiguous. One particular message stood out: "Make sure the decisions favor Forsyth's clients and you won't have to worry about retirement. The fund will take care of itself." In other words, make sure Musk's people don't receive any victories in that courtroom. It was bribery, plain and simple, and worse. This wasn't just a bad judge. This was a judge on payroll, and she wasted no time within 3 hours. Langford replied, "I understand. As long as everything stays off the books, we won't have an issue." Leavitt went live on national television. "We have evidence that Judge Bernard Langford accepted financial incentives to sway the case against Elon Musk, and worse, he did it in collusion with the prosecution's legal team." She shared screenshots of the emails, read passages on air, and described the offshore payments. "This is not just courtroom bias," she said, her voice sharp and urgent. Within minutes of the business ties and Mexico's retreat, social media exploded. Back in the courtroom, Musk's legal team was still in the dark and didn't know the bomb had just dropped, but they were about to find out, and when they did, everything changed. The Judge Langford scandal was in the news, and people demanded an investigation. Politicians also weighed in, and even those who weren't fans of Musk couldn't ignore it. Judge Langford appeared calm while sitting in his high-backed chair, but he must have noticed a few minor details, like the way his fingers gripped the gavel a bit too tightly and the way he cleared his throat before speaking, which suggested that he was holding back something. Russell Greer, Musk's lawyer, was using his phone and wasn't listening to the judge when they opened the door. He looked at the TV as though he had just been given a loaded gun, then he turned to face Musk and said, "Have you seen the news?" in a low voice. Musk frowns and doesn't wish. Musk's gaze shifted over the headline as Greer passed his phone across the table. Judge Bernard Langford was exposed in emails related to a bribery investigation. Musk chuckled quietly as offshore payments were revealed for the first time since the trial began. Langford was unaware that Greer had stated, "Your Honor," standing suddenly before we continued, "I would like to submit urgent new evidence into the record." She had been following the trial from the start, paying attention like everyone else, but the more she listened, the less she understood it. Musk's legal team was impeccable, and his lawyers didn't miss any details, but every time they tried to move forward, it was stopped before it could get traction. This wasn't just poor legal work, it was interference. She dug in. Leavitt began with Judge Bernard Langford, whose record was spotless on paper. He was a well-respected federal judge with no past rulings that suggested bias, and he was the kind of official people assumed was above reproach. However, in her experience, squeaky clean records usually meant someone had cleaned them. A trust fund hidden beneath layers of legalese was discovered by her after she pulled financial records, campaign donations, and any connections to high-profile corporate figures. Over the previous 2 years, Langford's family trusts had received a number of anonymous deposits, hundreds of thousands of dollars at a time, that were routed through offshore accounts that didn't point to a single individual. Wealthy families had complicated finances, but the timing was the issue. Among the first significant deposits arrived weeks prior to Langford being given Musk's case, and it wasn't a coincidence that she broadened her search to find those who stood to benefit from Musk's demise. Daniel Forsyth, the lead prosecutor, had a fascinating relationship with. He had served as legal counsel for several energy companies, all of which had vigorously opposed Musk's solar energy and electric vehicle endeavors. It was all coming together when someone wanted Musk out of the picture. She needed something tangible, like emails or recorded conversations, or anything else that couldn't be disregarded, and that's when she received a tip. In an encrypted email, a former legal clerk who had spent 2 years working in Langford's office said, "You're looking in the right place. If you want the truth, Langford doesn't make significant decisions without outside consent. Examine his travel logs." In late 2023, he wasn't on vacation in Mexico. As her fingers skimmed over the keyboard, Leavitt checked Langford's official travel records against corporate accounts' private jet charters. Langford wasn't just there, he had been flown in on their dime. Her heart was racing. This was it. In late 2020, on a 3-day trip to Cancun, the same weekend that prominent executives from Tesla's largest rivals attended a private business retreat. Langford wasn't just biased, he was bought, but exposing it would require more than just documents. It needed to go public in a way that no one could ignore. It didn't waste time because the pieces were all their financial trails. Off the books are anonymous deposits. Meetings with executives who stood to benefit from Musk's demise. But in the modern world, proof needed to be strong and unquestionable, so she contacted a reliable cybersecurity source. Before Karoline Leavitt revealed the truth about a bribe judge, a rigged trial, and a scandal that rocked the legal system, Elon Musk believed he was defending himself against a lawsuit. It began as just another court day, with suits lining the benches, lawyers whispering and hushing, and a judge ruling with an air of authority that commands the room, but something wasn't quite right. The case against Elon Musk was not just another lawsuit, it was a high-stakes corporate war masquerading as a legal battle. His opponents, a powerful group of investors with strong political ties, were accusing him of engaging in fraudulent business practices. The accusations were baseless at best, but Musk had seen enough of the world to know that reason wasn't always successful in a court of law. He looked at his lead attorney. A tough trial attorney known for dismantling weak cases is Russell Greer. Greer initially exuded confidence, but then the first warning sign appeared. "Protest, Your Honor, that the prosecution is presenting unfounded allegations without any substantiating evidence." Overruled, overruled. Judge Bernard Langford hardly glanced up. Greer paused for a brief moment, a look of perplexity flashing across his face. The judge dismissed the prosecution's recent argument, which had no legal basis, as if it were commonplace. That's a stretch, don't you think? Musk whispered as he leaned in. Greer didn't respond because he was too preoccupied with trying to understand what had happened. And then another blow. We respectfully ask for your permission to present important documents that highlight the contradictions in the plaintiff's claims. Judge Langford massages his temple on the side. As though he were coping with a small annoyance that was denied. Musk wasn't the only one who noticed the pattern. Every decision to date had gone against them, and the prosecution's case, which should have been full of holes, suddenly seemed airtight, not because it was strong, but because they were free to say whatever they wanted. Greer made this subtle but telling gesture by straightening his tie. Musk folded his arms and looked at the judge's face. Langford was so composed that he wasn't reacting, interacting, or even acting as like he cared about justice. Over the course of the following few hours, the situation only got worse. Every time Greer attempted to push back, Langford shut him down. Every time the prosecution presented dubious evidence, it was accepted without question. Musk-friendly witnesses were also brushed aside as irrelevant. By midday recess, the tension in the air was high. This isn't simply prejudice. Musk and Greer are sitting in a peaceful area of the courthouse cafeteria, not even touching their food. Finally speaking quietly, Greer stated, this is something because Musk already knew he dealt with competitors who were willing to play dirty before, but this was something bigger. Someone wanted him to lose badly. The issue was that he didn't currently have any proof, but someone else was already looking for it. Something about Musk's case felt strange to Karoline Leavitt, a journalist who founded her career on exposing corporate malfeasance, power machinations, and backdoor transactions that never made the front pages.